Say hello. And yeah, let's do this. Okay, cool. So welcome to the stream. Today I'm going to take a look at the Elementary OS dark style. We just had a blog post a couple days ago go out on the website, and I wanted to kind of do a little hands-on, I guess, with it to show the state of things right now and some potential things we can do differently, I guess. So yeah, first I just want to take a look at the what you get out of the box with the onboarding. Hello, Kai likes Linux. I can't tell if that's an I or an L. Hello, Mirzaki and Michelle. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I shouldn't try to do that live. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go to my projects folder with elementary onboarding. Make sure I have the latest, yeah. And then I'm going to build it, and I have an alias set up here that's eNinja. It just does, it goes into the build directory and it builds it. Okay, so I have the latest. And then I'm doing G settings reset. This is all very technical, I'm sorry. This is basically resetting the onboarding app to its first run state and then launching it. So this is like if you first logged into Elementary OS. And we just recently added this new early access build screen. The exact copy here is still going to be tweaked probably, but just lets you know that, hey, this is an early access build, things are not done. You have the nice little two-finger swipe on my trackpad here, or you can, it works on the touch screen as well. You can't see that I'm touching the screen, but I'm touching the screen. Or you can use your mouse and scroll wheel, or you can click here, or you can click next, so lots of ways to page through this. And by default, in Elementary OS, it's going to be like this, and we'll probably have a different wallpaper. But you can, right out of the gate, choose the default style or the dark style. And we remind you that, you know, other apps can override this look. So an app might choose to always be light for some reason, or it might not support this setting yet. So we're trying to kind of set expectations right out of the gate here. And that's something that's really hard. We're not trying to do a forced dark style throughout the whole operating system, whether apps want it or not, because that can actually break apps. And I can show you in the blog post that Dan had a great screenshot of like the calendar app, which had great, beautiful styling for the light style, but it actually breaks in the dark style without the updates that we've now made. So yeah, so right out of the gate, you can choose dark style. You can also choose a nice accent color here. I'm going to choose green to match my wallpaper because I think it looks nice. And the rest of this I'm just going to leave as is for now. So yeah, out of the gate, and then you could also choose in the system settings. We have the appearance pane here. It's really similar with the addition of a schedule here. And this is, we're still figuring out the exact UI for this because this is getting very crowded. So this will probably, almost certainly change its look before the final release. But we do have the ability to schedule this. So for example, if I said at, you know, it's 3:41 p.m. here, I could say at 3:42, oops, numlock, at numlock is a pain. Okay, 3:42 p.m. Then it will automatically change to dark mode at that time. We can open a few other apps here to show you. So here's files, here's the calendar. What other apps support this right now? Here's App Center. And what else? The system itself, system settings you have open in the background there, the Tasks app. And this is a relatively fresh install for me, so I don't have everything all totally set up if you're wondering why there's no calendar events and tasks. And there we go, it's 3:42, and you get a dark style. There's also plans to make that a little smoother. You can see when this changes, apps kind of change at their own rate because the way widgets are animated and the way GTK works, it kind of takes a second for everything to catch up. So there's a plan actually in Gala, our window manager, which is the thing that provides window overview and everything. We can actually listen to that setting, and when it is changed, we can effectively take a screenshot of the desktop or a screenshot of every app and smoothly transition each of them, which would be really cool. So similar to how when you maximize, it does a smooth fade between the two different states of that. Same idea there. So that should get smoother. Hopefully that ships for 6.0. Animated transition on... Sorry, I'm reading comments right now. Thoughts about animated transition on this theme select theme colors screen. Yeah, so it's similar. I'll have to talk to Adam, who has been working on that transition for the dark stuff, and see if we can do something similar there. Because yeah, it's similar. It's a little more subtle. It's not quite as jumpy, I guess, as the dark style. But when you change the accent colors, it's not as smooth as it could be. So hopefully that would be similar to the dark style. Yeah. So let's look at what other dark style stuff. So I guess one example, some of the things that Dan looks at in his blog post, which I'll actually pull that blog post up now. And if you're wondering, Epiphany is, it's a flat pack right now, and it does not support our style sheet at the moment. That will be fixed. So if you're wondering why it looks like a no map and doesn't support the dark style, that is why. Let's see. So yeah, files, I believe. Calendars one, I don't have events in there right now, so I can't show you the before and after and everything, but this is a good example if you're curious of what calendar looks like before we explicitly supported the dark style. So we had, semi-transparent labels for the light style, and it looked great on a white background. But then when you switch out all of the styles and have a dark background, it totally breaks and everything's unreadable. So the way we are fixing that now is in the style sheet we have better styles that support dark styles and give you contrasty colors for accent colors, no matter if you're in the light or dark style. So, and it's not as simple as just using white text, because this is actually a tinted version. It's really hard to see, but it's a tinted version of the light text. So it ends up looking really good. Something that we don't have right now is Mail app. So Mail is hard. Most people, when they send and receive emails, they're sending and receiving HTML emails. HTML, or the web specification, has dark style support like you see in web browsers, but most email clients don't send that CSS that's needed to support the dark style. So other email clients do different things. Some of them inject that CSS, some of them try to smart invert things, but ends up with unreadable text, and then you have to overwrite it. So we're not exactly sure what we're going to do with the email app yet. One thing that we can do is when we send mail from the mail client, we can actually inject that CSS into the message, so that when you receive a message in a supported email client, it should automatically switch to light or dark depending on your system style. But as far as incoming email, we don't know. Is it better to have a dark app and then be blinded by a white email, or have the whole app be light to set that expectation? So there's still stuff to figure out there. And then terminal. I actually have to pull this code down. I don't think I have it on my machine yet. Terminal is an example of an app that is, we have it dark by default in the operating system, but we give the option today to set it to light, or even this high contrast light style. So let's get rid of mail here. This presents some challenges, because you might always want the terminal to be dark even when your system is in a light style, which today works, but you might just want your terminal to follow along with all your other apps. So I've started working on a prototype of that. Let's see if I have it here. It is called Dark Style, I think. This is really fascinating with my aliases here. I should have done this ahead of time on the stream, sorry. You're seeing a live view into my my process here. So right now I'm installing the dependencies to build terminal, because I haven't done that yet on this fresh install. So elementary helps if you can type. terminal, super secret password, and yes, install the dependencies. Hacking on terminal is really fun because if you break it, you don't get a terminal anymore. So you got to jump into the TTY under the hood terminal, which is not ever fun. Okay, so that should be... I have an alias here to delete the build directory, recreate it, and set all the correct flags. That's what the eMason is. It just sets the default flags for Mason. So terminal should be built. Let's reopen it. So now you'll see, aha. So I have this follow system style switch now, similar to this natural copy paste switch. And by default it's off, because we want that experience of, even if your operating system is in a light style, the terminal just is dark by default. That's just the way the terminal is for elementary OS. That's kind of the way it's always been, you know, a dark terminal, kind of a callback to the old black screens with white text or green text even. So, but we understand some people might want to turn this on. So if you turn on follow system style, it will match whatever your system does. You can set dark or light. And that will follow the schedule if you have it scheduled and everything just like that. So it's pretty handy. And there's some bugs here. This is why this hasn't been merged, because it doesn't quite pick up the correct changes when you fiddle with it too much. And yeah, same when you do that, it kind of gets confused. So, got to fix that before we get it merged, but I think this is the route we're going to go with terminal. I think it's a nice compromise. It lets us deliver that dark by default style while also letting you just have it follow the rest of the system. I'm going to read some comments here. Hi Lanes, sorry I missed you earlier. How's Denver? Denver's okay. Colorado is getting pretty high on the whole COVID cases again, so that's not as fun. But I like Denver itself. I like the weather generally, except this week it's very cold. But yeah, Denver's good. Lucas asks, about the transition solution using a screenshot of every app, wouldn't that give the feel of frozen apps while the transition is happening? For example, if you're watching a video in the video player. Yeah, a video player is a good example, or like a web browser if you're watching a video in a web browser. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Adam, his username is Donadigo. I think he has a branch of Gala that does a transition like that. But keep in mind, it would be a pretty quick transition. It's not like we're gonna like take a screenshot, do a smooth 5-second fade, and then like show you the new thing. It's basically freeze the app, wait until it's done transitioning, which is going to take like in a number of milliseconds, like under a second, and then smooth fade between those pretty quickly. So it's similar to like this maximizing animation, where you don't really even notice that it's doing it, but it's taking a screenshot of the app now, taking a screenshot of what the app is going to look like when it's maximized, and then crossfading between them, which gives you a much smoother transition than just like seeing all the reflow happening. So the same idea would be here of like, you know, that only takes a split second, but it would just smooth fade between it. But yeah, it's something we'll have to try with videos and stuff and figure out if it feels smooth. But I think it does, because it feels smooth with the maximizing transition. Mast says, what were the most surprising problems while implementing dark style? Surprising. I'm trying to think if there's anything actually surprising. I just think how deep throughout the system we have to pay attention to things and change some things. So an example again from that blog post is in the Files app. We have this music icon, which looks great. We've had a similar music icon for the Places sidebar for years, but it's dark. And so as soon as you turn the system dark, that music icon becomes almost unreadable. You can't really see what's going on there. So that requires an update to the icon style. We've even talked about maybe having a concept of light style icons and dark style icons, and that gets really hairy really quickly. So the alternative is to do a better shape and color that works better on light and dark backgrounds, which is good anyway, because we don't know where developers are going to use the icons. So there's lots of little tiny details like that. So I don't know if that's really surprising, but it's definitely a challenge of like just how deep through the whole system you have to pay attention to these things. And there's even places like in the display settings here, it's kind of the opposite problem. Oh, it's not going to load. Oh no, probably something with OBS. It doesn't like that I have like 3 displays plugged in. So I can't show that to you, can I? I wonder if it's in the blog post. Nope, Dan didn't get a screenshot. Well, but basically it has the opposite problem where the UI is too light instead of being too dark. So it's like, it's too jarring when you open it up because of the colors we're using there. So now we have to pay more attention to making sure that custom styles are like actually respecting that you want a dark style. Let's see, switchboard plug display. Displays, plural. I always get confused. Nope. Helps if you can type. Let's try that. I'm sure this is fascinating watching me typo on screen. So I had a pull request open here. Yeah, so the original, what currently happens in Elementary OS is this. So you have, here's in the light style, and then in the dark style, those displays don't change colors at all. So it's like, it looks great in the light style, and then in the dark style, it's just really blindingly bright. So the idea is to have a little bit, either use some transparency, or Dan actually has a much smarter way of doing this, similar to what we did in the calendar. But when you switch to a dark style, having those not be quite as bright, and in your face by using a little bit of transparency or the accent colors. So that's another example of like just all the tiny little details. Another place, let's see, where was it? It was in one of these plugs. I think in the applications? No, notifications. Notifications. So all these little illustrations here are really cute little illustrations, but before they always had a light background, and so they were really bright. So we have to explicitly either use colors more intelligently in a dark style context, or switch out the illustration altogether. Like I guess here you can see the popover is dark in the dark style, and then when I go out and switch to the light style and go back to notifications, I'm running an unstable branch of switchboard too, which might be part of why you're not seeing things load correctly. There we go. You'll see it switches out not just the background, but the color of the notifications, the color of the dock, the color of this popover. So there's tons and tons and tons of these tiny little details that becomes a big challenge. Yeah. So I hope that thoroughly answers your question. When is Elementary OS 6.0 approximately coming out? When it's ready. Yeah, honestly, we had been saying, hopefully this year. I don't know, at this point. COVID has thrown a huge wrench into things, and we haven't been able to do our in-person sprints that we wanted to do, and that has affected some of the major features in Elementary OS 6. And then there's still a lot to do. Like, dark style is not supported everywhere. There's other apps and features we want to ship. Some of the flat pack support especially still has to be done. So I would say when it's ready, and I don't know when that's going to be exactly. But if you want to see how it looks right now, good plug, head to builds.elementary.io, and you can support us on GitHub sponsors, and then that'll give you access to these early builds so you can actually try it out and see how it's coming along. We also have a project tracker there at builds.elementary.io that shows all the work we've done so far and all the work still to be done before the release. So it kind of gives you a better sense of what we're working on. Let's see. Thank you. Somebody said we have the most beautiful Linux distro by far. And somebody else says that they hope to port Pantheon to BSD. That would be cool. Let us know if there's anything we can do better to help you in that effort. Somebody else is asking if Elementary OS 6 will come with performance and battery improvements. So yeah, that's an interesting question, because it's every release of Elementary OS comes with the newest kernel from Ubuntu, so inherently that comes with performance improvements, hardware compatibility improvements, efficiency and battery life improvements depending on your hardware. But we typically in Elementary OS don't work at that low of a level, so we're working with all those libraries and the kernel and everything underneath, and then we work on top of that with the user interface and user experience. So it's hard to say right now. I will say a lot of work has gone into Mutter, which is the window management library. So that's when literally when you move windows around the screen or you go into the multitasking view, things like that. This uses Mutter as a thing to draw that, basically. And Mutter has gotten a ton of attention lately from GNOME and Ubuntu developers, really, really improving that performance, which you see in later versions of GNOME Shell. So even though we're not using GNOME Shell, those Mutter improvements do trickle down to us. Yeah, hopefully that answers that. So let's see, I think that's all the comments for now. Any other light style, dark style stuff that I can show off? I guess I can show an example of a third-party app, which is actually my my app. So right here I'm using, I have an alias to clone something from GitHub, so it just makes it less to type, so I don't have to type git clone https or git at git whatever. I just type GitHub clone and then the organization or user and then the repository name. So Ephemeral is my web browser. It's, let's see, yeah, that should still be fine. It's a privacy-focused web browser, so it doesn't save any cookies or data or anything on your machine locally. But it's also been a kind of a cool playground for me to experience the development on Elementary OS as a third-party developer. So we'll see. Oops, I didn't build it yet. That would help. So install dependencies. Now I'm building it and installing it. Okay, so now we have Ephemeral, once this updates. Yep. And I want it as my default, because I usually do. So here's an example of a third-party app. And this is unfinished work here, the styling and everything, but by default I have Ephemeral follow the dark style preference. So my website supports light and dark styles. So if you are browsing the web, and this is probably similar, a similar experience to what you'll get in GNOME Web once that work gets done. But if you're browsing and you have everything dark and the website supports it, or for example, blog.elementary.io also supports dark style. So you're not going to get surprised if the website supports it. You won't get surprised by these blindingly bright websites. And we're seeing more and more sites update to support a dark style as Chrome OS, I think now, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, all support dark styles out of the box now. So this is becoming, more often than not, sites support dark styles. And then when you change to light, all your websites change to light. That's great. Something I'm doing that's a little different is in Ephemeral, I have a temporary override. So let's say you're browsing, or you have your system set to light style, but you just want this site to be dark. You can temporarily override it then. And yeah, it stays whatever. But then if your system automatically changes, whatever, it changes back. I still am trying to figure out exactly the logic here, but I might do something more like what we do in this terminal branch, where there's just follow the system style, and then if you turn that off, you can say, I want it to be light, I want it to be dark. Somebody's asking, is my browser Chromium based? No, it's built on WebKit GTK. So it's the same web engine that powers Safari, well, not WebKit GTK, but WebKit powers Safari on iOS and Mac OS. And WebKit GTK powers GNOME Web, for example, or Epiphany. It's really easy to build an app around that, basically. So that's what I use. Yes, Micah is correct. Sorry, there's a big delay between when I'm reading your comments and when you're hearing my responses too, so, or vice versa. So sorry if I'm answering things that have been answered or whatever. Let's see. One concern is sometimes web pages flashes white. Yeah, So I think there might be, let's actually see. If I go to dark style here, that is mostly up to the website. It's like on my site here, it loads fast enough that it doesn't do that. I think if I hard refresh, yeah, if I hard refresh, I get a white flash. I think there is, or on some pages, I think there's a thing I can do in the browser itself to tell it what the default background color is. Yeah, I'll have to look at that. That would be a good thing to check out, so you don't get that ugly white flash every once in a while if you like hard refresh or visit a website for the first time. So, but I do think you can set that in the browser, basically in WebKit. You can say, hey WebKit, please use a background color, whatever, instead of white. Mast asks, am I developing in a VM like GNOME Boxes or on bare metal? On bare metal, for the most part. I occasionally test things, especially doing like app reviews. I do that in a virtual machine, a fresh virtual machine. But yeah, for the most part, I'm on bare metal. You know, we say don't use this for production, but at the same time, when we're developing the operating system, we have to be dog fooding it, you know, all day, every day, so that we hit all the corner cases that people are going to hit. And yeah, so this is running on bare metal on my laptop. This is on my Dell Precision right now, and you also get better things like these animations, which of course this is not going to show, but touchscreen support and animations work better on bare metal than in a virtual machine. So that sort of thing is really nice. Yeah, bare metal. Somebody's asking what version of the kernel will 6.0 use. Let's see. We are currently on 5.4. So basically whatever the Ubuntu 2004 LTS with the hardware enablement uses. So we track the hardware enablement. So we do the same as 2004 with hardware enablement. So that means once they release the new kernel from their new hardware enablement stack, it comes down to elementary OS as well. So you basically get the latest hardware support while you have a stable operating system base, while you get the latest elementary software on top and the latest apps from developers on top as well. Fractional scaling support. Somebody's asking about fractional. So this has kind of diverged a little bit from a dark style support, which is fine. Because I know people are excited just to see elementary OS 6 in action. So fractional scaling. So fractional scaling is inherently a broken concept that we understand some hardware basically requires. The reason it's a broken concept is in elementary OS and third-party apps and icons and everything. For example, on this screen here, you see this is a 1 pixel stroke, and that's 1 pixel wide. And the strokes around the edges of buttons are 1 pixel wide, and the strokes around everything are 1 pixel wide. When you try to do 125%, like Lane's just said in the comments there, if you try to do 125%, you're going to say, okay, I want this 1 pixel to be spread over 1.25 pixels, which doesn't exist. So you end up getting 1 pixel and then another pixel with blurriness, with a quarter of blurriness. And everything ends up being just not quite crisp. But everything ends up being the correct physical size. So we understand why it exists and why people are asking for it. What we're doing for elementary OS 6 out of the box is having a new text size option that actually affects more of the UI than just the text. So the padding, the border radii, the spacing between things is affected by the font size, or the text size here. So it ends up being similar to fractional scaling support, but it keeps those 1 pixel strokes all crisp because the style sheet has been written in a way that says use sizes proportional to the text size for things like spacing and padding, but don't use things proportional to the text size for strokes, for 1 pixel strokes and shadows and things. So you end up with something that really is pretty similar to fractional scaling. I think we even go from like 75% at the smallest, so that would be like 0.75 scaling, up to I think 150% at the largest, which would be like 150% fractional scaling. And this is probably like 125 in between, I think. So you can effectively get the same end result, and it affects everything here in different apps. Everything's slightly bigger. You hit down to the smaller size, everything's back to a normal size. It's not perfect because in GTK you still can use whole pixel values for certain things, so not everything 100% scales exactly perfectly by the same amount, but in general it feels so much nicer than the old text size option, and it feels really similar to like a fractional scaling without that blurriness, so everything stays perfectly crisp all the time. Thanks for this live stream. Thanks for coming and joining. Glad that there's like 40 people in here. That's pretty cool. I understand Vala uses CSS. Can you recommend M for scalable content? So yeah, Vala doesn't inherently use CSS. GTK uses CSS for its styling. And you can use M's for certain things in GTK CSS. And that's what we're doing to enable this feature here. You can't, the place you can't use M's, at least to my knowledge, is places like margins in GTK. So that's when you're not actually setting the styling in CSS, but you're saying, hey GTK, I want there to be 12 pixels of margin between these two widgets. As far as I know, you can't say, I want the equivalent of 12 pixels in M's, which is what we do in our style sheet. So that's why it's not 100% perfect everywhere, that when you're setting pixel values in GTK, it doesn't scale by those M's. Affecting UI spacing elements is awesome, even better than actual scaling in my humble opinion, for the very reason you're talking about. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea. Mast asks, can that cause problems on third-party apps that don't follow the elementary OS guidelines? I assume you're talking about the scaling. Yes and no. It's not going to cause any more or less problems than an app that doesn't support the elementary style sheet in general. I'm trying to think of an app if I have anything installed that's GTK but not written for elementary OS. Again, this is a relatively fresh install, so no, because Boxes is a flat pack, so it's not going to use the elementary style sheet yet. But yeah, it's basically the same risk as just not supporting the elementary style sheet in general, but we do it in a way that the new style sheet seems to be more compatible with GNOME GTK apps in general, and we're only doing that spacing inside of widgets, which different style sheets have different amounts of padding and stuff anyway, so that's already kind of a risk when you're running an app that's not made for elementary OS on elementary OS. App developers can always explicitly only use Adwaita if they want, or only supported style sheets if they want. That's something you can do in GTK. And the end result there would be like GNOME Web right now in Flatpak is just running Adwaita and not the elementary style sheet. Apps can choose to do that if they want. Of course, we recommend test against elementary OS, build it for elementary OS, and it's going to be a better experience. But if you don't want to support elementary OS, the elementary OS style, but still want to run on elementary OS, this is always actually an option that third-party developers can do for those non-curated type apps. Hopefully that answers that. What about system dialog in the new style? Ali, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. System dialog in the new style. Here's a dialog. It has the new style sheet. We've been playing, there were some early looks at playing with some more interesting styling here. I'm not sure if those will make the cut or not, but the style sheet is still in heavy development, so they might. Let me know if that answers your question. If not, follow up and I'll try to answer it. Are there plans to add a high contrast with bold text theme for accessibility? You know, it's a huge challenge, just asking about the future. Yeah, so that's interesting. Right now, I don't believe we have the high contrast style in Universal Access anymore. And that's because what it did under the hood, what's a good example of this? I guess I can just set a GTK style. How do I do this? I'm not sure what it's called actually. Basically, the way the old high contrast style worked, and it works in GNOME, is it just sets the GTK style sheet to be Adwaita, but a higher contrast in a lot of ways. That breaks all of the elementary styling, because Adwaita doesn't carry the elementary style sheet styles, because it's not the elementary style sheet. It basically, anything that's relying on the elementary styles break. Oh, I guess here I can open up Granite Demo. So this is an app that demonstrates some of the unique elementary widgets and styling that we have. A good place to show this is the style classes. So we have style classes for things like these different sliders, the terminal type text, the different typography, accent color buttons. And what happens when you set the old school high contrast mode is all those styles go away. So you end up, you don't get the styled class here, you don't get an accent color, you don't even get the font sizes for the headings, or the checkerboard, or yeah, any of this. It all breaks basically, which is not good. So what we could do theoretically is create a variant of the elementary style sheet that has even higher contrast. Instead, what we've been doing is ensuring that this new style sheet has AA or AAA, depending on the context, contrast between the foreground and background everywhere. So you'll notice, compared to the old style, it feels a lot more contrasty. I think I might be able to even open a second Granite Demo and switch to the old style sheet. Yes, it's going to do it for both. Well, here's the old style sheet, and you'll notice like the sidebar has dark gray text on a medium gray background, which is not super contrasty. I'm trying to think of some other examples of contrast. It's hard to come up with on the spot. Even like this white text on a blue button for a suggested action button is not as contrasty as it could be. So in the new style sheet, we have fixed all of that. We have a much darker blue on the lighter blue background, which is more contrasty. We have the sidebar is a slightly lighter gray with darker text, so it's even more contrasty. So the idea is that accessibility is for everybody. Like, just because you don't have a vision deficiency maybe doesn't mean that your display is the best display ever, or if you're using it on a projector, you might need that extra contrast. So the idea is to support this high contrast look throughout the whole operating system as much as possible. We could do something like a separate higher contrast style sheet, especially now that we're developing the style sheet in SCSS or SAS. It might theoretically be easier to do that, but it's not something we've looked at yet. We've been focusing more on making sure the default style sheet is high contrast. What is my favorite distro after elementary OS? That's hard, and I feel like it's just going to start a flame war. If Ubuntu GNOME still existed, it would be Ubuntu GNOME, because I really like what stock GNOME has been doing lately, and I really like that experience. But I really am super familiar with the GNOME, or the Ubuntu underpinnings, because elementary OS is based on Ubuntu. So I'd say Ubuntu GNOME, even though it doesn't exist anymore, is my my next favorite distro. Any plans to move to ButterFS and have any snapshot support like in OpenSUSE? So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier of elementary OS doesn't typically operate at that low of a level. We do have people with knowledge of those things, and I'm not one of them. But what we tend to do is lean on Ubuntu. That's a huge reason we're based on Ubuntu, is they have a huge team of developers that make a lot of good decisions about the underpinnings of the operating system. So I would say ask Canonical what their plans are for ButterFS and snapshots, and that's probably the same answer for us in the next LTS-based release. Sorry to go back to fractional scaling. Will elementary OS automatically decide which scale fits best? So no, for now, we just use 1x scaling out of the box for the text size. You're talking about text size. We do switch to the scaling factor automatically. So if you're above a certain DPI, it'll switch to high DPI mode. But as far as the text size, no, we just use 1x because sometimes that's a little more personal preference. If you're on a 13-inch 1080p display, you might like having the text nice and small. You might need it a little bit bigger. We've talked about, maybe with hardware manufacturers out there that are shipping 13-inch 1080p displays, maybe that's something they can do in their image, or their version of the image is pre-select that size. Maybe that's something we could do in the elementary daemon that we have. But as of now, no, we do just use the default text size. Let's see. Lucas says, AA contrast is already great to have. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and if you ever find it somewhere that's not that contrasty in the operating system, please file an issue, because that is what we strive to do. Mast says, following up on the second favorite distro, says GNOME OS. Yes, sorta. GNOME OS would not be Ubuntu based either, so it's kind of like Fedora to me. It's like I like it. I like the stock GNOME look and feel, but as soon as I have to open the terminal and do stuff, it gets a little more scary for me than I'm comfortable with. Yeah. I could have gone the Raspberry Pi OS route, because I do frequently use Raspberry Pi OS on my Raspberry Pis, so that's another option. Although that's usually headless and no UI, and also Debian based, so familiar. I love stock GNOME. My OS has pure GNOME love. I never got to use Ubuntu GNOME because by the time I got to Linux, Ubuntu GNOME was dead. Yeah, that was an interesting side effect of the transition of from Ubuntu, from Unity to GNOME, is that they kind of made Ubuntu GNOME the default Ubuntu, but then also customized it so it was more like Unity, so now you don't really have the stock GNOME. And there's like a few things you can do on Ubuntu to get it more stock GNOME, which anytime I'm using Ubuntu I typically do, which is like install the GNOME session, remove the snap store and install GNOME software, add Flatpak support. That's pretty much it. And uninstall and install all the right apps and stuff. But then it's actually a really good GNOME experience, stock GNOME feeling experience. It's just a little work that you have to do to get it there. Ali says, I have Decomp Editor. Yes. So I think there's a known bug. See, I haven't even opened Decomp Editor on this install before. Yes, I'll be careful. The keys property, yeah, it's fine. So I think there's a bug where, yeah, we're not exporting all the correct style constants for the GTK style sheet. So when you unfocus certain apps, some text goes unreadable, and here it looks kind of green because of sub-pixel aliasing, because that's fun. So there's already an issue, but that's our issue that we will fix to make sure all the right things are exported. But yeah, it's a simple app. So, I mean, scaling the text scaling, whoops, where am I going? Appearance, text size. Like, it's all gonna scale pretty well. You'll notice one thing that is interesting, because icon pixel sizes are set in GTK, not in CSS. So you'll notice, like, when you change this, the search icon itself doesn't get any bigger or smaller, but the padding around it does. So the button stays just, the button does get bigger and more easy to press because the button itself gets bigger, but the icon itself doesn't get any bigger. So that's kind of the one downside we have. But as far as the app itself, I mean, you'll notice the everything scales up well. So yeah, that's an example of a GNOME app, I guess. But a simple one that's mostly just text. So let's see. Still steering away from dark style topic, but any plans on supporting workspaces on multi-display setups in the future? So yeah, that's a limitation in Mutter, I believe. Mutter, yeah. Which is, again, the windowing library. That's the thing that we use to build Gala, which is what draws all the animations, the workspaces, all that stuff. So Mutter doesn't natively support multiple workspaces on multiple displays, if that makes sense. Multiple workspaces on different displays. Theoretically, we might be able to work around that, but that starts to get really hairy really fast. So ideally, Mutter could support that natively, and then we would get that. You're also seeing in the I just noticed in the workspaces here, there's a bug because I changed from high DPI to low DPI to do the stream. Gala doesn't totally refresh, and we have an open bug for that. So if you're wondering why the bottom of the multitasking view looks a little janky, that's why. But yeah, so for right now, the primary, whatever you have set as your primary display in the display settings is what supports workspaces. Yeah, I gotta file that bug where you can't open the same pane again. So if you had multiple displays, I have them mirrored right now because I have an output going to OBS. But you can mark one with a star as your primary display, and workspaces just are on that one, and your external displays just are counted as like a separate singular workspace. But yeah, ideally we would have it so that if you change workspaces on your primary display, it would change there, and then you go to your external display and change workspaces there, and they would be kind of separate. And there's been issues filed for that for years, I think, but we're waiting on support in Mutter or somebody very smart to come along and contribute that to Gala if you're interested. Let's see. Sorry if shown already, but how's the lock screen looking now? Yeah, so lock screen I think looks pretty much the same as on. Oh, let's see if this totally breaks things. I'm not going to do it on my stream because I'm mirroring my displays and I don't know what's going to happen, so you might lose it. But it looks pretty much the same as on Elementary OS 5.1 with the new style sheet. So things are higher contrast. The avatars, we have these new avatars which look really nice that are dynamically updated based on the contents if you don't set a photo. Yeah, but otherwise it's the gray background right now. There's an open branch to blur your wallpaper, but there's concerns about semantically that doesn't make as much sense to have. We have this gray system level that's like below everything layer, I guess system layer that's below everything, and that's like what your lock screen is. But then would it make sense to have your wallpaper blurred there when your wallpaper is also on the card in front? So it's a little weird there, but there is an open branch that does it, but it's not very great with performance, especially on lower power machines or high DPI machines. So, and especially on multiple displays and stuff. So I don't know. There are things we could do. We could blur the wallpaper ahead of time, like what GNOME is doing. But I'm not convinced that it's the best look. And since each card is a different user with your different users' wallpapers, it makes sense to have a more neutral background. Another branch that I have open somewhere is to more dynamically scale that user card. I gotta pull up a screenshot so people that don't know what I'm talking about can can see this. GitHub.com/elementary/greeter. So we have blurred background is one of these. So you'll see here, is there a screenshot? Of course there's not a screenshot anywhere of this. Come on. Here's a terrible idea. I'm going to stream a YouTube video on a live stream. Okay, well yeah, here's at least a picture of it. This is an open branch, but it's got weird issues where things overlap and the performance is kind of janky, especially with lots of users. So that code is there. It exists. If we get those issues figured out, maybe we could look at something like that. And then the other one is the scale cards based on display size. So, come on. Yes, I left some screenshots. So if you have a tiny display, it looks about like it does today. If you have a larger display, it gives you more space for your user card, up to a big old display size. So it's kind of hard to imagine here, but picture the bigger your display gets, the bigger that card could get. And this still has some issues, I think, to figure out, but I think that's probably the direction I will go. Hopefully that answers that. Is it possible to add different wallpapers for different monitors? Not yet. I think that's also technically a Mutter limitation. I'm not 100% sure, but no, as of now, when you change your wallpaper, which by the way, hey, did you catch that? That's a nice new feature in Elementary OS 6. You can right click on the desktop and get some handy shortcuts to things. Right now it just sets the same wallpaper for all displays. So yeah, I like this one. This one looks really great with both purple and pink accent colors. Especially in the dark style. Yeah, look at that. Look at that pink. Looks nice. I wonder how much time is wasted collectively by people just fiddling with dark style and accent colors, but we know people like to make things their own. So, can I hide disabled accounts in the lock screen? Yeah, I believe that should work out of the box. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, do you mean, like, yeah, if you have a user account here and it's marked as disabled, I'm not sure. If there is not an issue, please file an issue. If there is an issue, I'll take a look at it. Since we're not talking about just dark mode, can you show up in mixed mode in files? Oh yeah, sure. So and I'm probably going to wrap up in a few minutes here because I have to get to dinner and it's been almost an hour. But I will show mixed mode in files. So let's elementary files. I have not cloned files. Okay, so let's clone elementary files. And then what's that clone? Which my internet's going slowly because I'm streaming. Approximately 600 hours and counting. Yeah. You commenting? Oh, you're I thought you were commenting on how long the stream was. You're commenting on, hi Shickle, by the way, hello. How many hours of productivity are lost to fiddling with accent colors and wallpapers? Yeah, probably a lot. Okay, so let's check out mixed mode. I think that's what the branch is called. I probably need to install some dependencies. This is still Pantheon files. Pantheon files. So installing the dependencies for Pantheon files, which is technically elementary files now. The package name has not been properly updated, which I have an open issue for. So, hey Peter. Hey, long time no see. Good to see you here. Thanks for hanging out. If Akira works in this version of Elementary OS, how will it look? I'm not sure. I'd have to build Akira or run it from a Flatpak. I believe if I ran it from a Flatpak, it would just look like Akira anywhere else. If I build it, it'll use the new style sheet, which I know Alessandro was asking about some of the new style sheet stuff, so I assume for the Elementary OS 6 release or shortly thereafter, it'll be released for Elementary OS 6, and it'll work fine. I'm not sure what it looks like today, actually. Lanes. Yes, thank you, Lanes. He said, after doing that desktop menu, I can't imagine going back to the old days. I think Lanes took the initiative of actually getting that to ship in Gala so that you can right-click the desktop and get to your wallpaper, display settings, and system settings. So thank you for that. Let's see. All right, files should be, dependencies are installed, so I'm actually compiling and installing files itself now. Any plans on implementing a dynamic wallpaper? So yeah, that's there's two ways you can do that. You can do it time-based, which I believe GNOME does right now with one of their wallpapers, or you could make it aware of the system dark or light style preference, which I think is what we'd prefer. We don't have that right now. It's something we've been thinking about, and I'm not sure if we'll get something together by the time Elementary OS 6 ships or not. But yeah, it would be really cool to have the default wallpaper have a light version and a dark version, and when your system changes, it follows along, fades between it. That would be really, really awesome. So no promises, but it's definitely something we're thinking about. Hydra paper on FlatHub can set different wallpapers on different monitors. Yeah, so the way that actually works is it actually creates a separate image and then puts them, spans it across all the monitors, and so that it's actually, you could do that yourself in Glimpse or whatever. I think the problem there is it gets finicky if you unplug a monitor. I don't know if it's smart enough to automatically do the right wallpaper on the right screen, and if you switch the orientation of your monitors and stuff. So it's something that's a workaround that you can do, or you can use an app like Hydra Paper, but it's a workaround, so it's not natively supported. So I think we'd have to make Gala aware of multiple wallpapers per display, and we have to have new G settings keys to store those wallpapers, and it's probably something we could do if somebody took the time to really think it through and do it. It just hasn't been a huge priority at this point. So Shickle says, thanks for the stream and the work you've been pouring into Elementary for this release. Thank you. Thanks for all your hype machine, everything you do. Yeah. So I think that about wraps this up. Oh no, you wanted to see mixed mode in files. That's what I was doing. Jeez. Okay. So for those unaware, mixed mode in files, we're trying to address this whole single click, double click thing in files. A huge reason we do single click instead of double click is A, it's just faster. B, basically everything but computer operating system file managers is single click these days. On your phone, it's single tap to do stuff. On tablets, whatever, it's single tap or single click. On the web, you click once on a link and it opens. This whole double click in a file manager thing is a dated concept. And we've always, I think from the very first elementary OS release, always defaulted to a single-click option. People, though, have rightly pointed out that it's really frustrating if they accidentally click a really slow-loading file and it takes forever to open, and then it's not what they even wanted to do. So we're kind of testing this idea of single-click to navigate within the app and then double-click to open. So this, I don't have any files. This is a fresh install. So here we go. I got some screenshots. No, I don't. It just has a screenshots folder. Here we go. So single-click to navigate through files like this. But then the idea is once you actually get to a file, single-clicking it selects that file because that's the natural end of the flow of navigation. So you're staying within files because you're just navigating. And then if you want to open it, of course, something just glitched there. If you want to open it, you can double-click and it opens it up as you'd expect. Or you can right-click and open. Or the idea is maybe eventually we integrate the properties pane as a side pane or something. And then that could have an open in code button or an open in default app button, so that once you get to that natural end of the flow of clicking through files, there's still a one-click way to open that file up if you don't want to double-click, or you can just double-click. Yeah, so that's the idea behind this branch. It hasn't been merged yet. It's still something we're thinking about. But so far in testing, I've really, really liked it. And so far, I don't know why my screen just flashed black. That was weird. Yeah, so far I've really, really liked it, and it feels natural. You keep that double click or that single click really fast, traversing files, and then when you actually want to open something up, you can explicitly tell it to open, and I already just opened up a random file. But yeah, that's the idea. That seems really natural. Thank you. Yeah. GNOME Sushi feature in elementary. So there's an open issue. Somebody has a plugin that uses Sushi for previewing things. Here's the thing. I just hit the spacebar to open that file. Files generally open extremely fast in elementary OS. So being able to preview a file seems a little weird, especially because in our testing, GNOME Sushi was slower to open files than the stock elementary apps. Now that might not be the case with like large PDFs or something, but yeah, so far it really hasn't made sense to have a separate previewer app. Again, something I could see is if we have this properties side pane, we could have a higher resolution thumbnail in that side pane, which would make, you know, clicking through, especially images and videos and stuff, like clicking through them or navigating through them in the file manager a little faster, because you could see a higher res version without, you know, like zooming way in your file manager. So that would be an option, but the whole GNOME Sushi model or macOS previewer model hasn't seemed to really make a lot of sense when your apps open so fast with just a single click, so, or single button press, I guess. Shickle says, I know it's been there for a while, but I still got to give props to the lightning fast thumbnail generator. Yeah, I don't even remember what that is. I think that's Tumblr is what it's called, not to be confused with the website. But yeah, it's really fast. It's really nice. Thanks, Peter. That's a great concept and intuitive compromise. Yeah. So far, like, it has seemed like it makes a lot of sense to be able to just really quickly, single click traverse through the file system and double click to open things. So that's what we're trying so far, and I'm really liking it so far. But I think that's gonna wrap it up, guys. Thanks to everybody for joining, all 40 or so people. And if you liked this stream, you know, thumbs up, subscribe, whatever, hit the bell if that's a thing. I don't know how to YouTube. But more importantly, please give us feedback on like social media or in the comments here and on YouTube. We're thinking about doing more of these streams a little bit more regularly, possibly as one of the Patreon perks or GitHub sponsors perks or something. That has not been totally figured out yet, but that's part of why Dan and I have been trying to stream a little more regularly. So, but yeah, it's been an hour. Thanks for hanging out, and talk to you guys later. Now I don't know how to end the stream, so I'm just gonna